on the sheet on the table there, and then we'll have you come up to the podium and pose a question at the appropriate time. Thank you very much. Sure.
Well, they almost, some of them did. Okay, just to let you know, I do go through them.
We go ahead and call the meeting of August 12, 2014 to order. Kathy, could you take roll call, please?
Okay. Paredes? Odom? Here. Carroll? Here. Marks? Present. Langston? Simmons?
Here.
Lunsford.
And a quorum is present, just barely. A lot of travel and holidays and vacations, but we do have a quorum present. And with that, we will move to item 2 on the agenda, which is audience comment. This is a time for audience to make comments on any item not on the agenda. Any comments for items on the agenda we will take after the board discusses that particular agenda item. We're trying a new procedure starting this month to make this process a little more efficient, a little more organized. We're having folks sign in before the meeting, and then we'll take questions from the audience up at the podium so we can make sure everyone hears the questions or comments that are posed. We have one person that signed in, Tiffany Sally. If you would kindly step forward to the podium and pose your comment or question.
My name is Tiffany Sally. My question that I wanted to bring before the board, I was attempting to enroll my son in your school district. I recently purchased a home and found out that we are actually across the street from the boundary for Flossmoor. I live in Olympia Fields, so there's a portion of Olympia Fields that is in the Homewood Flossmoor School District. When we purchased, it was listed on our MLS that our residence was in Western School District, and then since found out that that is not the case. Coming before the board to see if there's any way that you guys would consider making a special, concession and allowing us to enroll my son, my husband here, and my family with me. We are very both proponents of quality education, not to say anything about any other school in the area, but it's something that is very important to us, and that's actually the reason why we moved out this way. I did look at your policy and to see that there is some literature that states where you guys can make an exception under with the superintendent's under his if he authorizes that to do so. We're not looking for bus service, any assistance, lunchroom, anything like that. I just really want my son to be able to get the best education possible. Both myself and my husband, like I said, we are strong proponents of higher education, just a quality education. Sorry, I'm just getting a little flustered because it's been a really emotional situation. So I even, looked on your website, I found the policy that you guys have where you will take in consideration, I guess, a case by case, and I know that that is at the superintendent's discretion. So I would just appeal to, to the superintendent, if you could please take that into consideration. We will volunteer, do whatever we need to do to be an asset, our family, our son, to be an asset to not just the school, but the school district. If I need to pay out of this district tuition, I'm more than willing to do that as well. Whatever is necessary, that's something that we are willing to do. So that's the issue that I, wanted to raise. Just a brief history about us. We both, my husband is, he's from Joliet, Plainfield area. I'm from the North Shore. We both went to very diverse, lived in very diverse communities. That's kind of the same thing that we want for our son. We both have advanced degrees. We want to make sure that he's in a school system that really, looks long-term and not just short-term. Gates Millennium Scholar, it's just, education is very important to us. So again, I would just ask if there's any way, I know that, I'm sure you guys probably have, this has come up before, and it's no one else's fault, but, like I said, when we purchased, we solely purchased because, it said that our residence was in that district, and, we made our choice based on that, and then kind of find out that that is actually not the case. So again, if there's any way that can be considered, I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. I'm sorry to hear your situation. Anecdotally, we do work with the superintendent, and the board has always abided by the superintendent's recommendation on matters like this. In the 7 years that I've been on the board, we've never allowed for that. However, each circumstance we treat as a unique incident. So we will confer with the superintendent, and he will make a recommendation one way or the other, and we'll likely abide by that. But we appreciate you coming to the meeting tonight and making these comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Duster?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Simmons. I have about 8 things I'd like to share out. We had our data retreat, which is part of our school improvement cycle. We had that on the 4th of August, and we had CEC come in and help guide with that. We saw a lot of improvements with some of the data that we looked at. We continue to work through that information as we prepare for the school improvement plans, which will be presented either, will probably be presented at the end of September at our committee of the whole meeting, as we usually do. Next, we had administrative retreat on the 7th and 8th with all the administrators. We discussed information. We went over our plans for next year to solidify all the information, our direction, where we need to go, etc. It was a very successful time. In addition, we also were trained in using different communication devices, and we're really going to open up Twitter, and we're going to get that out more. What we've been doing in our schools has been some fantastic things with the technology as a tool to the curriculum, but we're not getting it out enough to the community. So we're going to utilize our website a little bit more with that, also our Twitter site. So it's, as far as like being a kid, I know if your picture was in the paper, your parents would buy 10 papers and give it all the aunts and uncles. We're trying to do that concept as far as getting that information out, seeing what the authentic assessments are like, so that we can show our families. Number 3, registration is going. We had a new model this year for registration. We're evaluating that. We've had people come in, set up meetings. We're discussing with them residency, having an improved residency, going through all the forms. We'll have a meeting when everything is finished to compare how things went last year and this year. There's been positive comments and some areas of improvement by the community. There's a survey that has been present. We have assignment handout days that starts tomorrow, the 13th and 14th, and then next week, I believe it's the 20th and 21st. Information is posted on the website for our families and community members. Next, new teacher induction, that took place on August 5th and 6th, and if you look on our webpage, you'll see a picture of our teachers who we brought in this year, a nice group. Welcome to our staff. Just a reminder, the first staff institute, our teacher institute, will be on August 21st. All of you are invited. As you know, this is just a reminder, that will be at Prairie State College in the morning at noon. People will be dismissed and they'll head back to Parker for professional learning opportunities, and then Friday they'll go to their buildings for more professional learning opportunities from the principal. That's a Thursday, August 21st, and if you can be there at 8 o'clock, that'd be wonderful. I'll reserve seating for the board.
And we should let Kathy know if we're going to attend.
That would be, yes,
Yeah.
wonderful. Next, we have first day of school for the students will be August 25th, and please be mindful, this is the second year that it will be a full day. Remember the legislation that was passed, we have the first day is a full day and the last day is a full day for students. And in addition to that, we have a tentative date for the State of the District address. That is October 22nd, 2014. That's the date that works out best so far in regards to the district calendar. So if you could put that down, we'd appreciate your attendance at that meeting with the community. Last of all, construction. Serena Hills roof is done. Flossmoor Hills roof is almost complete. It's going well. Parker construction is going extremely well. We're actually ahead of our timeline at this point. The weather's been working out well. And they started putting down footings yesterday. Building will start shortly as far as the shell. It should be under roof, they're hoping, by mid-October, and they'll be doing all that inside work. Doing a real good job. I'm pleased with the progress that's being made from all of our vendors or contractors that are there. Any questions?
Okay.
I do have just a comment, it's just, as a board member, but a parent, that the registration, I'll be receiving a lot of really positive feedback. The process of the residency, haven't been out in maybe 15 minutes with that.
Yeah, we've had a lot of those days, but we've also had days where people have had to kind of wait. So it's just tough, you know, how to do it. We're trying to accommodate our community because that was asked. So maybe we'll take and after we review this, take the best of both and bring it together for the fall and continue to improve on it.
Great. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda. We will approve all of these items with one motion. Included on the consent agenda are the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting dated July 14, 2014, and the minutes of the executive session meeting with the same date, as well as the appointment of 2 independent hearing officers for this upcoming year. This is a change from the 3 that we had from this prior year. My understanding is one of the officers' residents prevented that person from participating as much as we had hoped. So the 2 that we're recommending are 2 that we've used for a number of years and are familiar with the district.
That's correct.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety as presented. Odom? And Harold with the second. Any questions or further discussions or corrections? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approval of the bills. Ms. Harrell had the wonderful task that we all cherish so much, and we've been doing for a number of years, even prior to it becoming a requirement from the state, reviewing the bills in great detail. Ms. Harrell.
I had an opportunity to review all the bills and had a couple of questions. Ms. Lavella answered them in great detail, and I recommend that the bills be approved. I'm sorry, make sure I have it right. In the amount of $1,144,745.28 for the month of August.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Marks. Roll call, please.
Okay, Marks?
Yes.
Odom?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes, and the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of payroll. I will entertain a motion to approve payroll as presented in the amount of $313,796.59 for the month of July. Marks
Second.
and Odom. Let's do roll call, please.
Okay, Carol?
Yes.
Odom?
Yes.
Marks?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes, and the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of personnel report. I will entertain a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Odom?
I'm not sure if it's appropriate, it's like I'm agreeing that I had a question about something for the executive session.
Let's get the motion first.
Okay, anyway, okay.
Is that a second?
Yes.
Second from Carol.
Second.
So it sounds as though there's at least one question or comment on the personnel report. So in that case, I will recommend we do executive session to discuss matters of personnel. I don't have the school code on my person.
I believe I do. So personnel, that would be 5 ILCS 120-2 C1.
As referenced by Ms. Perino. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Terrific. We'll table that vote until after executive session. Next item on the agenda is an approval of MOUs regarding pay schedule, school year for bus drivers, and media clerk. Mr. Dustin.
Yeah, this was explained, Ms. Lavella explained this information, but basically, there was some tweaking that needed to be done after negotiations as far as paying people appropriately in those categories. And that is what you see in front of you. Association signed off on these and voted on it, and we bring that to the board for approval at this time.
I will entertain a motion to approve the MOUs as presented by, for recommendation by the administration.
So moved.
Marks
Second.
and Odom. Any questions or discussion from the board? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an approval for resolution regarding hazardous bus routes. Mr. Dustin.
Yes, this is an annual agenda item for our Board of Education. These routes that you see in front of you are from the Illinois Department of Transportation. They are deemed as hazardous bus routes. Therefore, any of our students that we pick up around that area where they deem that it's necessary, it is reimbursable from the Illinois State Board of Education. So the list that you have presented has not changed from last year. So with that being noted, I recommend this for approval.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for approval of the resolution regarding hazardous bus routes as presented. Odom
Second.
and Marks, any discussion or question on this? As Mr. Duster highlighted, there is no change. This is a standard annual process that we go through to approve this. I think the list is pretty much the same as we've seen for the last several years.
It is.
I have one question, that the Flossmoor route that we added last year, that's on this list now?
It is not. That is not. That has not been deemed by Illinois Department of Transportation. That route is non-reimbursable.
And that's consistent with the finding from last year as well.
That is correct.
Right.
Will they ever reconsider that? Can we resubmit that as a potential hazardous? Because the information presented obviously was enough for us to say, oh, we need to do this.
There's a point system that IDOT comes out to do, and I had Ms. LaBelle look at that as well as Ms. Majewski, and it's their belief that we would not have enough of the point system to make it to that point. So in the last, when we approved that, I was looking at a safe routes to school. So if they put a sidewalk up on that point all the way to the school, state grant that would fund that, then perhaps that would assist us with helping this and we would drop that. Last year, I have to look at my, at the records last year, but I thought it was between 8 and 14 students that could ride that bus. And the cost to the district, if it's, that was $320, so you're looking around $3,500 for that trip. This year, we have placed a potential of 80 students. I found that information. We won't know how many kids will ride, but if it's 80 students times 350, you're looking at a $30,000 expenditure. That wasn't there in the past, and that is not a reimbursable, for the school district. So in the memo of last year, I had placed on there, we will come back to review this because I thought we would have the safe routes to schools. However, I don't know exactly how many children are on there. It seemed like the board was okay with 8 to 14 when we discussed that. But if there's 80 students that are riding that bus, or even if there's more than 20, I have a concern, and I need to bring that to the board so that you can have a discussion.
So there does seem to be an appeal process that we can go through.
We can go through IDOT to have them come out and evaluate it for us.
Is there a cost associated with that?
I would have to check on that. I don't know 100%.
Would you do that in the meantime as you aggregate the number of students who might have affected by this? Thank you very much. Any other questions on the motion on the floor?
No, just to clarify, these are all reimbursed by the state as extra coverage because they're deemed hazardous.
Everything this evening, if approved.
Right.
Okay, hearing no more questions. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any aye? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is an approval for a physical education waiver. Mr. Duster?
Yeah, I'll be quick since we've already had a hearing on that. We had a hearing last week. The presentation was given, and basically it breaks down to adding 3 more days of PE, and in the proposal it is 30 minutes a day spread out throughout the day. Who would be in charge of that would be the teachers. We've spoken to the administrators about this on setting some times up, but it would be a breakdown basically, and has to follow the curriculum. It could be movement, that could be, it will be movement or something of that nature involving the curriculum. So once this, if this is approved this evening, we will send this to the State Board of Education, which will take place on Friday or before Friday. Please note that I did have analysis done by our architectural firm. It would be $12 million plus to put gymnasiums on extra space to assist this. In addition, we are unable to add on to Western Avenue because there is not enough room per code to place another gymnasium on there. I didn't have a check if you wanted to build up other classrooms or another gymnasium. That's a pretty old structure, something of that nature. But that is something the board would like me to look at. I most certainly could, but I thought the $12 million would be enough.
So thank you, Mr. Duster. Do I hear a motion to approve the submission of the PE waiver as recommended by the administration?
Make a motion to approve the submission of the waiver as submitted.
Ms. Harrell, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Marks, any further questions or discussion?
We discussed at the hearing, we were unable to attend that hearing. At the hearing, I believe there was concern for, how do I phrase this? The mindfulness of the law that has been enacted and the burdens placed on the individual schools. And some concern that this mandate greatly interferes with the delivery of education is being best fit by our educators.
Okay, thank you. My read on this is that we would apply for a waiver if we were unable to comply with the school code as currently written. I've read the school code a number of times, including a thorough review again this morning. The way I read it, and in conversation with Mr. Duster, I'm of the belief that we can get into compliance with the school code as currently written.
Without the waiver?
Right. And as such, I'm not sure why we would apply for a waiver, start a 6-year clock, which is how long the waiver, if granted, goes, and then be left with a bundle of uncertainty at the end of that 6-year period. Given that we are able to renew the waiver for 2 consecutive 2-year periods after the initial 2-year period. So that's kind of my current takeaway on this situation.
That was mine as well during the hearing, as well as the fact that it is the law. And we are expected to comply with it whether it is funded or not. I think that we have spent a lot of money on infrastructure, putting in a new front for Western Avenue, putting in a new side for Parker. I can't recall the bottom line numbers, but I believe that 12 million is not something that is so outrageous that we can't find the funds to build appropriate building space, a gymnasium for the children. I understand the problem with Western Avenue. However, it appears that we haven't exhausted all possibilities there with that building. And so I'm just not of the mind of starting a 6-year clock and then trying to leave it, because I would feel really bad after the 6 years are up with leaving a board and administration with the problem of we have to do something now. We don't have any choices. We have no more choices. We have no more opportunities. And we don't know what our finances in the district will be at that point. You know, 6 years from now, we may not be as financially healthy to do the work that is necessary, and then we're stuck.
So I actually, if I can get clarification on the conversation here, you said based upon what you've read that you believe that we can be in compliance without applying for PE waiver. Is that something we can discuss more? And the reason I'm asking is because one of as Christine brought up, the tear being torn is in compliance with the law, right? So if we need to do a waiver, we do a waiver. There was a concern, obviously, with us taking the time, and I'm a big proponent of physical education, but where are we finding this time? We're asking to teach more, right? So we're asking the teachers to spend less time on fundamental subjects, being in PE. So I'm struggling with that piece of it. So if you can help me understand how we can become compliant under the law right now, that we're aware of this as a board without applying for a waiver, I just want to have that discussion. So it kind of will help where I hope.
The school code is currently written, doesn't specify number of minutes per day. It requires daily structured physical activity as a part of the curriculum. We have 2 in the elementary schools, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Duster, 2 typical physical education classes per week of 30 minutes apiece. In listening to the discussion that's happened over the last couple of months, not just recently, and I wasn't at the hearing, so I'm not sure how detailed the discussion got there, but Mr. Duster, our building principals, and our educational staff feel pretty confident that they can incorporate appropriate physical activity into the existing curriculum to meet those standards, to meet that school code, without necessarily having to go through huge infrastructure projects to build gymnasiums where they don't exist now. And so that, if we give them that ability to use their judgment or discretion, their job essentially, why would we need to apply for a waiver from that when we feel like we can get in compliance?
So, Mr. Jester, just during the hearing, I don't think I got that as much from you, so that I would like, so you and your administrators feel that with our current curriculum, and the expectations of what is required of us under the law, that we can't be in compliance with the law, provide as much physical activity that is required by law without applying for a waiver. You and your administrators feel that you can't do that now with what we have, no waiver applied for.
What we would do is what's in the proposal. So we would take a look at a number of minutes per day where the children don't have PE, and there'd be some, the teachers would do something in regards to assisting with movement. So they could have a stretch break, there could be a yoga, some of that nature. We had a retreat, we spoke to our principals about maybe doing something that first 15 minutes of school, bringing something of that nature, and if they could do 5, if they could do 10, they're talking about that and discussing that, so that could lead, that would give less time taken out of instruction for that. But that would be the discretion of the schools, and we would take a look at everyone and make sure that it would be addressed.
So it's the same thing we discussed in the hearing, just not applying for the waiver. You're saying still do the same thing, documenting, we're doing this, but not starting the clock on the PE waiver, and there's no concern that we will be out of compliance with the law by doing this.
That is a thought process. What I'm saying is that we are able to offer this, or we're able to do these things that are mentioned in the waiver, if this is not approved or something.
I'm asking the question just because it will impact, you know, I was part of that discussion after the burden of, okay, all this other stuff with the teaching and education piece of it. I also know, as responsibility, we're going to want to be in compliance with the law. So I just want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly, that supporting, okay, we don't need to send this waiver because we will be able to be in compliance by doing this on our own without applying for waiver and starting the 6-year clock ticking. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, it's just,
Yeah.
I need that clear answer so that I can vote appropriately. And
What I'm
support.
saying is we had a hearing, this is
Okay.
the process,
Okay.
and it needs to be voted on by the board.
I think the piece that's difficult is that there are approximately, I think the research is 70% of the schools in the state of Illinois are out of compliance in one way or another with this law because they don't have the facilities. They share the gym for lunch, and the gym's just unavailable for the entire school day. So the law states that you would engage, I believe, daily during the school day in courses of physical education for such periods as are compatible with the optimum growth and development needs of individuals. So the law does not say you have to have gym every day for X and that, just as you need to have a physical education component. You know, that's all I've been able to find. The mandate suggests time periods, but they're not. Is it correct? I mean, I just want to make sure that everybody read the same thing, right? Got the same. They're not set in stone. So if we are in compliance, if we do offer some type of physical education that is, I don't even know that the law states that it has to be curricular. I think that might be in the mandate. So if we offer this, we would probably be doing something good for our students, allowing our teachers to make those decisions and our administrators for when they could do this daily activity. And we would still be in compliance with the best reading of the law, but there's no, and I'm going to get my words wrong on this, Ms. Oldham, so you're the lawyer, help me with this. The state of Illinois has not gone after a school district to form a case law on this subject. Is that the correct way to say that?
No, and no one probably will.
So it's fuzzy, nobody can tell you, we're trying to do the best, I mean, I think we have to decide to do the best thing. Following the spirit. Is that help?
Yeah, and then I'm going back to the hearing here, I just needed to get it clarification, so I'm gonna.
I just bring the process to the
Yep,
board.
that's fine.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am?
I was not aware of the meeting, of the hearing. Was there notice? And if
Yes, it was
so,
posted,
where?
just like every other meeting is posted.
On the website?
Yes,
It was posted on the website.
yes.
From what date to what date? When was it posted?
At least 48 hours in advance of the hearing.
So 48 hours, and it was
14
just,
days.
I'm sorry, what?
It was 14 days before the hearing.
It was 14 days and it was on the website, and that was the only notice?
And it was put in the board docs. That's how we.
And in
post
the
our
board
board
docs.
meetings and
Okay.
hearings.
Can that be noted in the minutes for this meeting, that the notice was on the two ways you gave notice?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Mr. Dutch was also the paper.
It was also in the paper too.
What paper?
Southtown.
Yes, ma'am?
I understand I understand what we're talking about, but I'm confused by, we are applying for a waiver to not offer that much, not offer the physical activity, and yet we're going to offer the physical activity, so.
No, we're applying for a waiver to offer. We're applying, the hearing was about offering this. We sent it down to the General Assembly. If they approve it or disapprove it, they'll let us know. That is what we're applying for with the proposal to do that. It is up to the Board of Education. We take a vote on what they want to do.
I understand, but the waiver is to keep us from having, the waiver is so that we don't offer the PE, right?
It is to offer, we don't have the facility to have regular PE class, so this is in lieu of that. We would give physical instruction to our students throughout the day.
Right.
That's what the waiver does.
Right, and I'm sorry, I wouldn't have gone to the hearing except I was working. It was 7:30 in the morning, so, so I'm still confused. We're applying for a waiver to keep us, because we don't have the facilities to do what is mandated, yet then we are going to do the mandate. Does that?
We're not applying for anything yet. That's the motion on the floor.
Okay.
And that's part of my question, is why would we apply for the waiver if we believe we can get in compliance with the mandate?
Right, because we seem to be talking about them as the same thing, and aren't they two separate things?
They are two separate things.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon me? Sure.
We can't offer a PE class in a gymnasium daily.
Right.
That's what we can't do. So would we ask for a waiver to say, we can't hold a gym class, PE class, daily in a gym. We don't physically have the facilities. That's one of the intents of that. The question is, if we can continue to offer some type of physical education that's not in a gym class, do we need to apply for a waiver? The waiver brings with it, as we've just discussed, some additional things that might be problematic and may not have been thought out well by the governing bodies that issue these mandates.
Right, it's a very fuzzy mandate.
It is a very fuzzy mandate.
But in the mandate, it doesn't.
Actually, the mandate's not fuzzy. The ability for anybody to comply with the mandate is what's fuzzy.
There you go. But the mandate doesn't specify a gymnasium, though, does it? And why isn't recess part of it?
The state does not consider recess to be physical education. Recess doesn't have a curriculum.
Some districts do consider recess as their ability to meet this mandate. We wouldn't, the way recess is currently structured here. But there are districts that do that. Every district really tackles this in its own unique way, which again adds to the mass confusion around this topic across the state.
Just to interrupt on that statement, you're absolutely right. However, there has to be a certified teacher at that recess time, and it has to be structured. So we just, play and PE, that's the differentiating factor.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the last question is, if you're leaving it up to each school's principal, I understand, is how that's going to work, and each school has physically different challenges to what's going on. But are you worried that there's not a continuity across that, as long as we're putting something in place specifically to do a mandate, to comply? Are you worried that across the schools, they may not be the same?
No. Our administrators and teachers will have a discussion about this and how they want to do it collaboratively. What we need to know at my level, as the board level, is it documented that they're in compliance, and that's what we will be looking for. It's up to the buildings. For example, right now anyway, teachers, if they see the kids need to take a break, they're doing some type of educational activity in the classroom to get them self-started again, perhaps. If a child in the second or first grade needs to go out for recess, the teachers take them out for recess. That's always happened, and that will always continue to happen.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, hearing no other questions or comments, the motion is for approval to apply for the PE waiver. It has been seconded. Why don't we do a roll call vote on this, please, Kathy?
Okay, Odom?
No.
Carol?
Yes.
Marks?
No.
Simmons?
No. And the motion fails. Next item on the agenda is, bear with me for one moment, please. New business. Is there any new business anyone would like to bring up or address with the board? Yes, ma'am?
Is the question about the bus routes with the construction.
With the Viaduct closing?
Yes, with the Viaduct closing. How long was this anticipated to impact the schools, and do you know if there has been any coordination with HF because of the bus routes at 183rd really intersect, especially since now they've changed the school times? So that was a concern.
Yeah, it's been a huge challenge. This was sprung on the village as well as the school districts, and it was a lot longer. The village did a great job in reducing the number of weeks, but we're looking between 8 and 11 weeks of this taking place. Hopefully they can knock it down a little bit more. We have sent information out. We posted on our website, sent emails out to all the families to have their, the patients with children being dropped off. Our principals are prepared. It will affect every one of our schools throughout the district. As far as HF, they have a different bus company than what we do. We have spoken about that. I have an administrative meeting with Homewood in the high school on Friday to have some more discussion about that. We're trying to plan this out the best we can, coordinate, but it will be a challenge for us. We just ask parents to be patient.
And I'm particularly asking, not even after school, is to be before school, has there been any conversation, or there may not be, with the bus company as far as, are the buses going to have to leave a lot earlier now, given that we're going there at 7:45, and that's...
They're going to have to, we'll evaluate that the first year. They know that. We brought those questions up. When do they need to leave? We're going to give leeway at our schools as well, though, as far as those types of things. It's going to be a challenge.
The bus company is in the information.
They're in the information loop, and they're working with us very, very closely.
The other issue is increased traffic through the neighborhoods. Today, we had in my subdivision, so much traffic. It was amazing because the people, they're cutting to go through Lawrence Crescent to get around to Balmer Road, and it was just nonstop, and all I can see is all the kids that walk to school. Normally, the street is just almost empty, and now all of this traffic, and then additionally people that are exposed to the community that wouldn't be exposed to the community, so maybe alerts as to traffic, alerting children as to traffic, and to, other people in the neighborhoods now.
I noticed an increased police presence in my neighborhood this morning and this afternoon. So perhaps as we start the school year, we make sure we reach out to them to ask if those patrols or those stations can continue, as we do have more and more children moving through the neighborhoods, walking and so forth to our various schools.
We might consider asking the village to send out an alert through their email system, just to alert everyone in the community. Kids are walking, what day schools begin. So they might be aware of that when school begins and what the hours are, and when they can anticipate kids being really much more visible.
I come from the police or the village.
I think the village, both, yeah.
Yeah, they sent it. I know I got notices from our school district, from the
to stay
village,
home between these hours.
and from the police department.
Stop for kids in the street.
Stop for
How
children in the
street.
I'll call Bridget tomorrow on that.
But but I actually forgot that today was the beginning. And so I called the village and the police department. I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? There's all these cars and there's all these cops. And they're like, Viaduct? It's a lot of traffic.
Any other new business items? Okay, I will entertain a motion then to go into executive session to discuss personnel. Marks?
Second?
Oh, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are now in executive session. We will be in executive session for approximately 30 minutes, after which we will take action on the personnel report. You are, of course, welcome to stay. Should you decide to leave, we thank you very much for coming this evening.